Investiture of the Gods, Chapter 100.
The final chapters of the text, and they are dense. They detail the immediate aftermath of the victory. And we're not just watching a king take a throne. We're watching the simultaneous construction of a new cosmic administration.
A heavenly civil service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the entire foundation of the Zhou dynasty's kingdom on Earth, both above and below, right? We'll see the two main instruments of power here. The sacred Fengshen platform for managing heaven.
And the golden hall for structuring Earth. Okay, so let's start with the hard reset, justice. Xia's very first act as, the New Order's administrator is a purge, and it is swift.
It has to be. The first order of business is dealing with the most famously wicked men of the fallen Shang regime.
The treacherous officials, Fei Lian and Eli.
They're executed immediately at the encampment gates. It's the necessary earthly closure. But as we've seen throughout this text, earthly justice is only half the story.
Right. The victory is worthless unless it's cosmically sanctioned.
Exactly. So Xia goes to the Fengshen platform and summons their souls. It's a moment of spiritual debt collection. He doesn't just destroy them.
No, he gives them a job title in the new infernal bureaucracy.
And that job title tells you everything you need to know. The charge against them is incredibly specific. They, quote, willingly played the sycophant, misled the ruler's sagacity, ruined the nation, and destroyed the sovereign.
They're the embodiment of internal rot.
Precisely.
And the poetic irony of their eternal assignment is it's fantastic. They are sealed as the gods of ice melting and tile shattering. The Bingshao Wajizjin.
Think about that title for a second. It doesn't mean they govern actual ice or tiles. Bingshao Waji is an old idiom.
What does it mean?
It means to dissolve completely. Absolute and irrevocable collapse. They didn't just cause the Shang dynasty to fall.
They are now condemned to eternally be the very concept of dissolution and ruin.
Nailed it. It's an astonishingly specific and, frankly, a terrifyingly poetic damnation.
But that raises a really interesting question for you, the learner. Why give them a job at all? Why not just, obliterate them?
Because in this cosmology, nothing is outside the New Order. If the Zhou victory really did establish the correct alignment of the universe, then even the most wicked and destructive events, the treason, the corruption, all of it has to be integrated into the divine plan.
It's all part of the great calamity cycle, the Jiyon.
Exactly. Even the traitors must serve the system they fought against. They're commanded to keep strictly to their new rules, KCUKZ.
They're basically necessary evil spirits, ensuring that ruin itself stays managed and constrained within the boundaries of the divine civil service.
Xia is showing that the new Zhou mandate controls not only good fortune, but also inevitable misfortune.
With that dark bit of justice settled, Xia shifts the energy.
He does. He goes back to King Wu and reports that the cosmic house cleaning is done. The sealing of all of the gods' loyalists, enemies, the wicked, everyone is finished.
All according to the ultimate decree of the highest primordial one, so heaven is now stable.
And that stability is functional, not just symbolic.
Okay, so what exactly does this new huge cohort of deities do for the king? Are they just decoration?
Oh, not at all. Their function is entirely state-focused. First, they fulfill a spiritual defense role. They are there to, quote, guard the nation and protecting the people. They're literally the supernatural defense force of the Zhou.
And their second function is what really ties heaven and earth together, isn't it?
Yes, and this is where the real political power of the Pantheon lies. They manage the essentials of survival. They're given authority over favorable weather.
Which means good harvests, agriculture.
Right, and they administer control over fortune and calamity. Good harvests, national luck, avoiding disaster, all of that now flows through a bureaucracy that is loyal to King Wu.
So the supernatural realm is now fully supportive and functional for the new dynasty.
A phenomenal spiritual foundation. But of course, Xia is never done.
He immediately pivots from the cosmic to the tangible. The war is over, the gods are sealed, but the ministers and soldiers on Earth are still waiting.
They're waiting to get paid. So he tells King Wu the next most urgent priority is dividing the land and establishing the feudal lords. Fen Mao Lai too.
This is that critical shift from a military power structure to a political one.
Absolutely. They have to pay their debts and create a system of governance. And he identifies three key categories for rewards. The first two are obvious: the officials and meritorious ministers.
And the disciples from the mountain caves who came down to fight.
But the third category, that's the strategic masterstroke, the one that makes the Zhou claim legitimate beyond just conquest.
What is it?
Rewarding the descendants of the ancient 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors.
Wait, why go so far back? Isn't rewarding the living ministers enough? They just won the whole war. Why honor figures who predate the dynasty they just overthrew?
Because that's the difference between temporary political power and lasting cultural legitimacy. By reaching back and honoring the ultimate foundational figures, the inventors of fire, agriculture, civilization itself, the Zhou are saying, we're not just replacing the Shang.
They're reconnecting with the purest origins of civilization.
Exactly. This act, the Chongdabaogongzi, declares that the Zhou skate is the legitimate cultural successor to everything that was ever good in the past. It's a brilliant long-term play for legitimacy.
And King Wu, I imagine, would have been all for this.
Oh, absolutely. He agrees enthusiastically. The foundational rules are set.
But here's the twist. Before the golden books of titles can even be read out, we get this dramatic moment of refusal.
Yes. The ultimate rejection of everything Ziya and King Wu are trying to build.
The spiritual warriors who were key to the victory Li Jing, Yang Jian, Niza, and 4 others, they step forward.
And they resign. They look at all the wealth and titles about to be handed out, and they refuse.
Their reasoning is so striking. They say they are Mountain Valley people, and that red dust, wealth, fame, and titles are not what we are willing to accept.
They see this world, even Victoria's New World, as just a distraction. They have to obey their master's mandates and go back to the mountains to pursue their own destiny.
King Wu is profoundly moved by this, isn't he? He recognizes their true power. He calls it the strength to turn heaven and earth, the Xuan Qinsuan Kunjili.
He knows they're capable of world-altering deeds. He begs them to stay, to share the peace, and help stabilize the realm they just fought for.
But they insist. So King Wu, who realizes he can't actually command these beings, he calls them celestial immortals from outside the square, decides to give them the grandest farewell imaginable.
And the details of the ceremony really underline that difference in status. It's held in the southern suburbs, the Nanjiao, a place usually reserved for ceremonies honoring heaven itself.
There's a 9-dragon decorated feast.
A display of respect normally given only to the highest dignitaries. And King Wu insists they drink until he literally forgets they're leaving, just trying to prolong the moment.
Okay, let's dig into the crucial philosophical nugget here, because this defines their whole choice. Ziya just spent decades sealing thousands of souls into a rigid, restricted, heavenly bureaucracy.
Right. And these 7 heroes, Li Jing, Jinza, Muzan, Neza, Yangxian, Weihu, and Lei Zhenzi, they achieve something fundamentally superior. The text's concluding poem confirms it. They achieved sainthood in their physical bodies. Ru Shen Sheng Sheng.
What does that actually mean in practical terms compared to being one of those sealed gods?
A sealed god, like our gods of ice melting, or even the gods of weather, has a job. They have a mandate, specific authority, and most importantly, specific restrictions and duties. They're part of the divine civil service.
But Ru Shen Shen Shen.
Sainthood in the physical body means they escaped the cycle of reincarnation and attained immortality without being subjected to that bureaucracy.
They chose unrestricted, eternal freedom.
Over a powerful but shackled divine career path.
Exactly. They are unbound by the very system they helped create. They left the earth behind, not for a heavenly job, but for true, unfettered existence.
It's the ultimate statement of spiritual independence.
So with the immortals gone, the focus has to return to the concrete, lasting structure that Ziya promised.
The foundation for the next 1,000 years of Chinese history. Ziya and the Duke of Zhou, that's King Wu's brother, they get to work drafting the official rules of governance.
This is the moment they turn meritocracy into a fixed aristocracy. But before anyone living is rewarded, they finalize the mandate of heaven by elevating the dead.
It's crucial. They posthumously grant the highest title, Son of Heaven, or Emperor, Tianzi, to the Zhou ancestors, Tai Wang, Wang Ji, and Wen Wang.
Why do that first?
By naming their ancestors as emperors, they legitimize King Wu's own lineage as the divine rulers before any vassal gets a piece of land. It puts the Zhou family permanently at the top of both the cosmological and political pyramid.
Once that divine status is locked in, they move to the system that will define governance for centuries, the 5 ranks of nobility.
Yes, this system is introduced right here and becomes the hallmark of the Zhou. You have the highest rank, the Gong or Duke, then the Hu, Marquis, the Beau, Earl, Zi, Viscount, and finally the Nan or Baron.
And these ranks dictated everything, didn't they? Land size, military duty.
Your entire relationship to the central Zhou court, everything.
But what if you had great merit, but maybe not quite enough to be a duke or a marquis? Did you just walk away with nothing?
No, they had a place too, just a less prestigious one. Those whose service didn't quite meet that standard were sealed as attached vassals, or fu young.
Minor retainers.
Minor retainers, often bound directly to a bigger lord. It ensured that the entire supporting cast of the revolution was integrated into the new structure.
And this is the key takeaway for you, the learner.
Yeah.
That shift from rewarding immediate effort to cementing a perpetual structure. We started with a system based on battlefield merit.
And now they transition to a fixed aristocracy based on hereditary land tenure. The names are read aloud by the Duke of Zhou in the Golden Hall. The regulations are confirmed by King Wu. And this is the official creation of the principle that titles are passed down forever, Shishikitu.
That move from chaotic fluidity to fixed hereditary rank, that's the true political genius of the Zhou Foundation.
And it's the price they pay for stability.
And what our sources show us is the blueprint for the entire 800-year Zhou dynasty.
And this isn't just about military control. It demanded a complete political and geographical reinvention.
But it's so much more complex than that, isn't it? It wasn't just about handing out land.
Not at all. It was a really sophisticated, decentralized system. It was all based on kinship, military duty, and ritual hierarchy. Instead of trying to rule everything directly, King Wu formalizes this massive enfeoffment.
Creating 72 states, almost overnight.
72 states. The map of China was fundamentally redrawn in that moment.
We're going to distill the origins, the roles, and the ranks of the 27 most prominent of these founding states.
Exactly. And to understand the genius behind this division of power, the whole thing was built on a calculated foundation of legitimacy. The new vassals fall into really 3 strategic groups.
Okay.
First, and the biggest group, were the royal relatives, the Zhou family, the Ji surname.
Makes sense.
Second, you have the meritorious ministers and allies, the great generals who helped win the war. And third, they very cleverly included descendants of the ancient sages like Shun and Yu.
Why do that?
To legitimize their rule. To show that the Zhou were the true successors to all of China's legitimate history.
So let's start with those first decisions King Wu made. He needs a center for this new universe, and then he has to figure out how to delegate control.
He does. And first, he moves the capital. He moves it to Haojing, which is near modern Xin. This was a statement.
A new center.
A new center. Haojing was the true administrative and ritual heart, the seat of the Son of Heaven. But, like you said, you can't govern the East from the far West. Not back then.
So they needed a system, and this is where we get to that fascinating structure at the very top, the dual control system.
It's a remarkable piece of political engineering 3,000 years ago.
So they split the administration.
They did. 2 of the most crucial figures stay right there in the capital with the king. First, you have King Wu's brother, Zhu Gongdan, the famous Duke of Zhou. He's an organizational genius. He gets control of all the vassals east of the Shan Pass.
The entire eastern half of the new kingdom.
Right. And then control of all the vassals west of the pass goes to the other main administrator, Xiao Gongxi, the Duke of Zhou.
So you have these 2 massive spheres of influence, both reporting directly to the king.
And it's brilliant. It ensures central authority is absolute. But the day-to-day oversight, the loyalty monitoring, that's handled by 2 completely trustworthy figures. It lets the king be the king.
It's also a risk mitigation strategy, isn't it? Instead of one all-powerful prime minister who could maybe lead a rebellion.
Exactly. You divide the power between 2 pillars who depend on each other and on the king. Proactive stability.
Okay, so that's the central court. Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. What about the guy who actually won the war, the military architect, Zhang Zia?
Ah, Luan. Right. The sources say he was actually considered too old to stay in the administrative court at Haojing.
But the honor he received was, it was extraordinary. It cemented his authority over every other lord.
It really did. He got massive gifts, of course, but the real power was in the symbols. He was given the yellow axe and the white yak-tail banner.
And these were not just fancy decorations.
No, not at all. The source is explicit. These symbols gave him the power to, and this is the key phrase, to independently conduct campaigns and punish anyone who stepped out of line.
So he basically had supreme military command over the entire feudal system, even though he wasn't in the capital.
He was the ultimate enforcer. He gets the highest military rank, and then he's sent out to the northeast, established as the Marquis of Qi, or Hao of Qi.
And when we talk ranks, the source makes it very clear he was at the top of the pile, right? Highest among all the other marquises and counts.
He was, just one step below a duke or a gong. So he wins the war, gets independent military authority, and holds the highest-ranking state outside the central government. That tells you everything about how important it was to lock down that eastern coast.
That really sets the map. So let's move to the states themselves, starting with the foundation, the bedrock of the whole system. The royal relatives, the Ji surname.
This was, at its heart, a family enterprise. The whole idea was to put loyal kin into strategic spots to be the screens and hedges of the Zhou house.
And the most important of these family states was probably Lu.
Without a doubt, Lu. He was established for Bo Qian, who was the son of the Duke of Zhou himself.
The organizational genius we just talked about. So why give his son such a massive state?
Because the Duke of Zhou was essential in the capital. Lu needed to be his powerful, stable, loyal base out in the east. Bo Qian was given incredible resources, 700 live land, which is just huge, precious jade, a great bow.
A clear signal of importance.
A very clear signal.
Yeah.
And this becomes critical very soon after, because King Wu dies, and the Duke of Zhou has to serve as regent for the young King Cheng. Lu was his power base.
So Lu anchors the east. Then moving north, you've got another anchor state, Yan.
That's right. Yan goes to the son of the other great duke, Shougangxi, and it's positioned way up north near modern Beijing.
So that's about defense.
Geopolitical defense, exactly. Putting a loyal Ji family member right on the frontier to guard against the northern tribes.
Okay, and then there's Jin.
Jin was for King Wu's youngest son, Teng Shuyu. Initially it was called Tan, later became Jin. This puts the Ji family in that really crucial Shaanxi region. But, not all the family got territory just for development. Some had a very specific security job.
And this is where we get the monitors, the Jian, who were sent to watch over what was left of the Shang royals. That must have been a tense assignment.
Extremely tense. Their job was to keep an eye on Wu Gang, the Shang heir, who was still living near the old Shang capital. So they placed these brothers right in the old Shang heartland to prevent any kind of rebellion.
And main examples of these states.
You have Guan for Jishuans and Kai for Jishudu. These states, run by the king's own brothers, effectively locked down the whole area.
But that puts a lot of power in the hands of those brothers right there on the scene.
It does, and that's exactly what backfires later. It leads directly to the first major crisis of the dynasty, the rebellion of the Three Guards. It shows the inherent risk in the system.
It really does. So if family provided the physical security, honoring the past was about providing political legitimacy. This is, I think, a key insight into how the Zhou justified their rule.
Absolutely. They knew they couldn't just say, we have the mandate of heaven now. They had to show it. They had to demonstrate continuity with past legitimate dynasties. And the best example of this is the state of Song.
Which was for Weiziqi, who was the elder half-brother of the wicked last Shang king.
Exactly. Weiziqi was seen as the good one. He'd actually defected to the Zhou before the final battle. So King Wu rewards him with the highest possible rank, duke or gong.
And his job.
His explicit mission was to continue the ancestral sacrifices for the former Shang dynasty. It was an act of incredible magnanimity, and it gave the Zhou huge moral authority.
And this pattern of honoring history goes back even further into legend.
It does. You have the state of Chen, established for the descendants of the legendary Emperor Shun. And then you have Qi, with a different character, established for a descendant of Yu the Great, the founder of the Shi dynasty.
So they're honoring Xia, Shang, and the sages.
By doing that, they basically position themselves as the rightful heir to the entire sweep of Chinese civilization up to that point. It's a masterclass in political legitimacy.
Okay, let's shift focus from the Ji family and the sages to the other key players, the allies, the ministers, the non-Zhou surnames who earned their spot on the map.
Right, and this is where you see that early tension between, merit versus kinship.
For instance, the state of Qin.
Qin was established for Bai Yi. His family, the Ying surname, had a history of service, and they were rewarded with the rank of Count or Beau, a solid reward for merit and loyalty.
But then you look at a state like Chu, and the story gets way more complicated.
Chu is fascinating. The sources are clear that their founder served as a tutor to both King Wen and King Wu.
So they were trusted, high-level advisors. They helped shape the Zhou leadership.
Service of the absolute highest order. But despite that, they're given one of the lowest ranks, Viscount, or Z, and they're stuck way down in the uncivilized Jingmen territory in the south.
So why? Why the snub?
And that's the aha moment. It shows the limits of merit when it runs up against the power of the Ji kinship network and, frankly, cultural prejudice. Zhou is seen as an outsider from the south. They were rewarded, yes, but they were marginalized.
And that marginalization of Zhou, this future superpower.
It becomes one of the great strategic blunders of the early Zhou. It creates a powerful, resentful state on their southern border.
It really sets the stage for centuries of conflict. Now, speaking of outsiders, probably the most surprising case in this whole list is the unwilling vassal.
This is an amazing story. It's almost like an international diplomatic incident right at the founding.
You're talking about Jizi and the founding of Joseon, or Korea.
Exactly. Jizi was a respected Shang minister who, out of pure loyalty to his fallen dynasty, refused to serve the Zhou.
And King Wu could have just, executed him.
He could have. But instead, he showed this incredible respect for Jizi's integrity. He didn't force him to submit.
Instead, he grants him the land of Liudong, and Jizi goes on to establish a state that becomes the ancestor of Joseon.
It just speaks volumes about the Zhu's sophisticated approach. King Wu gives him the Hongfan Juqiao, which is basically the Zhou political constitution, and then just lets him go.
Yeah.
It was about securing a comprehensive peace, not just conquest.
So we hit the big ones, Lu, Qi, Yan, Jin, but we have to remember the sources list 72 in total. States like Wu, Yu, Zhu, they were all part of this vast network.
A massive undertaking. And the next step was actually making it all work. Which brings us back to Jingangzia, heading off to his new domain in Qi.
And his very first act when he gets there isn't about building walls or raising an army.
No, it's about honoring an old personal debt. It's a wonderful detail.
He sends an envoy all the way back to the old Shang capital.
With 1,000 caddies of gold, brocade, and silk for a man named Song Yiren, who was his patron back when he was, just a nobody.
And he finds out that Song Yiren and his wife had passed away.
They had. But their son was managing the family affairs well. It just shows he has character.
Yeah.
The sense of honor was real.
And that integrity seems to translate directly into his governance.
It does. The source says that within not 5 months, the state of Qi was greatly governed. His effective rule and his military prestige just instantly secured that entire northeastern flank for the Zhou.
So if we pull back and look at the whole 800-year sweep of the Zhou, the source really credits two key figures for its foundation, doesn't it?
It summarizes the legacy perfectly. It says the whole thing was secured by the combined efforts of Taigong, that's Jiangxia for the military conquest, and Zhugong, the Duke of Zhou, for the political stabilization and administration that came after.
The warrior and the administrator?
In tandem, they created a political machine that was stable enough to last for centuries.